take this executive action lightly. I would have preferred to work in a more collaborative approach. I would have preferred to do the work with our allies in City Council to pass legislation ultimately. And we were doing that. We were doing just that. But some of the leaders who we are working with are standing behind me today. But unfortunately, we do not have the luxury of time. We have received credible reports that we have days, not weeks, before our city sees some type of militarized activity by the federal government. Our people have not asked for this, but nevertheless, we find ourselves having to respond to this. I'm signing an executive order today that will launch the Protecting Chicago Initiative. This is a project that builds on the months of preparation that we have done that has led up to this very moment. Protecting Chicago will ensure that every Chicagoan knows their rights, that every single family is prepared, and every part of city government is directed to protect the people of Chicago from federal action.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel where we break down the absolute circus that is modern politics with a straight face, mostly. Today, we're diving into the latest episode of Chicago, the Windy City of Bad Decisions. Buckle up, because Mayor Brandon Johnson just signed an executive order that's basically a giant middle finger to federal law enforcement, all in the name of protecting, well, apparently not the taxpayers or the law-abiding residents. No, this is about shielding the city from any help, cracking down on crime and illegal immigration. And folks, it's as serious as a heart attack, but somehow funnier than a clown car pilot. Picture this. It's August 30th, 2025, and Mayor Johnson struts up to the podium like he's auditioning for a role in a bad superhero movie. Executive Order number 2025-6, he declares, with all the gravitas of someone who's just discovered the power of the pen. What does it say? Oh, just that Chicago police are forbidden from cooperating with feds on joint patrols, arrests, or anything that might actually make the streets safer. No collaborating with ICE, no helping the National Guard if Trump sends them in to clean up the mess.
This sweeping executive order directs our Department of Law to pursue any and every legal mechanism to hold this administration accountable for violating the rights of Chicagoans. This order affirms that the Chicago Police Department will not collaborate with military personnel on police patrols or civil immigration enforcement. We will not have our police officers, who are working hard every single day to drive down crime, deputized to do traffic stops and checkpoints for the president. This order affirms the CPD officers will be directed to wear CPD uniforms and refrain from wearing masks so that residents can clearly distinguish them from federal agents. We do not want to see tanks in our streets. We do not want to see families ripped apart. We do not want grandmothers thrown into the back of unmarked vans. We don't want to see homeless Chicagoans harassed or disappeared by federal agents. We don't want to see Chicagoans arrested for sitting on their porch. That's not who we are as a city, and that's not who we are as a nation. My team and I have spoken with the governor, the county president, and with our federal delegation, and we are in complete alignment. The time for action is now.
Johnson's basically saying thanks, but no thanks, Uncle Sam. We've got this by not getting it at all. And why? Because Trump. The man's got such a bad case of TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, that he'd rather let the city spiral than accept help from the guy who promised to deport criminal aliens faster than you can say, build the wall.
It's the fear I'm talking about. See that? That couple there? They have to walk on the street because they're dealing drugs and hanging out and drinking there. See that there? You'll see it right on the sign there. See that? That couple is walking on the street because that's a whole group that's drinking, doing drugs, and selling drugs. See that? They can't walk on the sidewalk there. See that?
Looks like Johnson's allergic to winning if it comes with an orange tint. Now let's talk about the Chicago Police Department, or what's left of it. Chief Larry Snelling, bless his soul, has been out there admitting they're down over 1,300 officers, with some reports saying it's pushing 2,000 short of full strength.
Of CPD are putting in work, yet the reality, the department is down a significant number of sworn officers.
We are down. We're down close to 2,000 officers.
That's right, folks. While crime's running rampant, the CPD is operating like a skeleton crew at a haunted house. Officers are quitting faster than rats fleeing a sinking ship thanks to burnout, budget cuts, and policies that tie their hands behind their backs. But hey, according to Johnson, who needs more cops when you can just, I don't know, hug it out? Speaking of which, remember that recent MSNBC interview on Morning Joe? Oh boy, it was a masterclass in evasion. The host asked him point blank, would 5,000 more officers on the streets make Chicago safer? And Johnson, he dances around it like he's auditioning for Dancing with the Stars. Well, in the 1990s, we had 3,000 more cops and 900 murders a year, he says, as if that's a gotcha. Then he pivots to affordable housing, root cause, and everything but a yes or no. The host presses him 3 times. 3. And each time it's like watching a politician try to escape a straitjacket made of common sense.
You also like to get federal funding to help put 5,000 more cops on the street in Chicago. Would that help drive down crime?
Well, look, policing by itself is not the full strategy.
No, I understand that. You've talked about the other things you want, and I said those are good and important programs, but I'm asking also, would 5,000 more police officers on the street in Chicago be helpful to go along with all of those social programs that a lot of cities are engaging in and having success with?
Well, look, here's the best way I can put it, Joe, is that in the 90s when I was in high school, we had 3,000 more police officers and we had 900 people being murdered every single year in Chicago. It's just not policing alone. Of course, we want more detectives.
I know it's not policing alone, but I know it's not policing alone. You've told me everything else you want. I'm curious, and this does come down to an ideological difference between people. Do you believe that the streets of Chicago would be safer if there were more uniformed police officers on the streets of Chicago?
I believe the city of Chicago and cities across America would be safer if we actually had, affordable housing. Look,
okay,
I'm not saying that
that's not the question I asked. My question is, and I just need a yes or a no, do you believe the streets of Chicago would be safer if you got all of those other extraordinary programs put back into place, which do have a history of being successful, if that's complemented by having 5,000 more cops on the streets of Chicago?
I don't believe that we should narrow it down to just police officers, Joe, is what I'm saying. That is an antiquated approach. I'm saying we've invested in detectives.
Mr. Mayor, are you hearing what I'm saying? I'm agreeing with you that all of these other social programs are extraordinarily important. I just need a yes or a no, and then this will be the last time I ask. Would an additional 5,000 cops on the streets in Chicago help complement those programs to make Chicago safer?
Look, we are working hard to make sure that our police department is fully supported. I don't believe that just simply putting out an arbitrary number around police officers is the answer.
Incompetence level, expert. If dodging questions was an Olympic sport, Johnson would take gold, silver, and bronze. Let's not forget the cherry on this Incompetence Sunday, the migrant crisis cash bonfire. Chicago's burned through nearly $300 million in taxpayer dollars just on housing, feeding, and caring for migrants as of last year, with the state's total projected to hit $2.5 billion by the end of 2025, including hundreds of millions funneled into the city. We're talking empty lots costing $3 million that never housed a soul, short-term loans turned into permanent headaches, and budgets that make you wonder if anyone's ever heard of a calculator. Taxpayers are footing the bill for a crisis that's straining shelters, schools, and safety nets, all while Johnson signs orders to keep the feds at bay. It's like inviting a flood into your house and then yelling at the firefighters for showing up with pumps. But here's the kicker, folks. The residents of Chicago, a lot of them are begging for federal help. Black and Hispanic communities on the south and west sides are fed up with the shootings, the carjackings, the chaos. They've been protesting at City Hall saying, send in the troops, make our neighborhoods safe again.
Strictly advocating for black people and call ICE on them. Trump, come in here, clean this mess up. The most corrupt city in the United States is the city of Chicago. And that's not my...
Thank you, Mr. Blakemore, for your comments.
These are everyday folks who just want to walk their dogs without dodging bullets, not ideologues with TDS. They're welcoming any lifeline to crack down on the crime wave that's turned the city into a real-life GTA server.
You caused all this money to go to illegal immigrants, not Harold Washington. You gonna be held accountable for it. You trying to cover up where our money actually went.
But it's your fault that because you gave half the money to illegal.
You still feel like you have to harbor these illegals, which is not a good idea. Can you do the job, Mr. Brandon Johnson? And it's looking like you can't do the job.
Now, does the federal government have supremacy over Chicago in this mess? Legally speaking, yes. Immigration is a federal domain under the Supremacy Clause of the Constitution. Uncle Sam calls the shots on borders and deportation, and no local executive order can override that. But here's the twist. Thanks to anti-commandeering doctrine from Supreme Court cases like Prince v. United States, the feds can't force local cops to enforce federal laws. So Johnson's order is more symbolic than ironclad. It's a tantrum in legal form. Trump could still send in ICE or the Guard for federal operations, and Chicago would just have to sit there and watch. Supremacy wins, but cooperation? That's optional, apparently. In the end, this is what incompetence looks like. A mayor so blinded by ideology and anti-Trump fever that he'd rather let his city suffer than accept help. Chicago deserves better. Safer streets, smarter spending, and leaders who answer questions instead of dodging them. If you're in the Windy City, vote with your feet or your ballot. Hit that like button if you're as baffled as I am. Subscribe for more breakdowns and drop in the comments. Would you take 5,000 more cops? See you next time. Stay safe out there. Peace.